All right, guys, we're going to talk about how to customize a backdrop for your scene. So on this, it looks like it's applied to a sky dome light, because I do have a sky dome light in here. But if I zoom out, you'll see that it is basically just an image that is put onto a plane that I've bent around the scene in the work area that I'm using here. So we're going to get into this because it needs both an image. It's not an image plane. It is basically just a plane that you actually create, and you apply the material as the image that you have. So you can take an image from your phone. You can do a panoramic like what I did from the classroom here, and you can apply it straight to the image, and then you can scale it and then apply a bend to that, so that it kind of creates a panoramic, kind of a little bit more um, lifelike scene. And so a good thing about this is that you can then go and still end up with the effects, the lighting effects that you would have in as if you were just creating an HDRI map on the sky dome light. But there's nothing applied to this. It's just black sky dome. So there's nothing there, but you do have to have the sky dome in order for this to render out properly. And so I have this kind of bubble that I've created here. And if I render this, you'll see how that material is also showing up on the bubble itself, and lighting effects that are applied to the actual scene. So it's kind of nice, nice effect. It's easy to customize when you do it something like this, because otherwise you'd have to go through the steps in how to create an actual HDRI yourself and apply it to the sky dome light, which I'm not going to go over. But I know there are ways in using 360 cameras and things like that, but I prefer just to use, especially if you're just going to be rendering single scenes like this, then it's just as easy to use an image on a plane. So let's get into how to do this. I'm going to hide this sky dome light, and I'm going to hide the background image here, which I think I have on a backdrop here. So I'm going to turn off that. And so I have these things applied. Now it's just a table, and I've got this bubble just kind of hanging out here. So if I want to apply a sky dome, or not a sky dome, if I want to apply an image to a plane, I'm going to first create the plane. I'm going to move it just a bit, and I'm going to scale it up quite a bit. Oops, it has an old material applied to it already. So I'm going to apply a new material, our favorite material, AI Standard Surface will work the best. I'm going to scale this up, make it really long, because it is going to be a panoramic picture that I apply to this. And I'm going to add more divisions on the width right here, because I need this to bend smoothly in order for it to look realistic. So with this selected, I'm going to go to Attribute Editor. I'm going to go to Polyplane, and I'm going to make this subdivisions width 50. And that divides it up a lot more. So now that I've got that applied there, what I'm going to do is with this still selected, I'm going to put this, I'm going to call this backdrop right here. So I'm going to put backdrop and leave it at that. My color, I'm going to change to the file and then the folder. And then I'm going to locate the image that I have. So if you've taken one, or if you have one that you can customize yourself, I'm going to go back to, I went too far back, Pawn. My source images is a good place to store your images. I'm going to select this, which is the same one that I just used. I'm going to open it up. Now I've got it here. And what I have to do is make this bend so that it wraps around my scene. So first I'm going to rotate it so it's upright. And so I'm going to hold J and grab this, and it will snap into place the right way. Oops, a little too far. So I'm going to hold J again and snap it back, 90-degree angle. Now I'm ready to apply a bend modifier to this guy. I'm going to move it up a bit and move it away. All right, actually I'll move it back down. And I'm going to go to, let's see, you need to go to modeling first. and then I'm going to go to deform, nonlinear, and bend. And now that I've done that, I can see this bend handle here. This right here, I need to be parallel with the actual thing that I'm bending. So I'm going to select that, go to my rotate. I'm going to hold J, and I'm going to rotate this so it's parallel with my plane. Now I need to see which way is this thing going to bend. So I'm going to go back to my bend over here, and I'm going to add some curve to it. Now I can see whichever way this thing curves, it's going to be based on where that circle is going. So sometimes if it's not lined up right, you might have to rotate this other direction. So if it's not rotating the right way or curving the right way, you might have to rotate just the handle here so it curves in the right way. Anyhow, so I've got this now. It curves, but it curves kind of, I want it wrapping around my scene, and it curves pretty good just like that. I can move this whole thing. If I move this whole thing and just select the bend modifier and move it, weird things happen. It starts to shrink this thing. Okay. If I move just this, then it starts to expand, which I don't really want either. So you have to make sure as you're positioning this thing around, move them both together because they're kind of linked. One's kind of parented to the other. So I'm kind of center it around my scene here. And if I decide I want to curve it more, I can curve it more. If I want to scale the whole thing, I can select them both and scale them both down and then move them into place if I want my background to appear closer. Now with this selected by itself, if I go to scale it, it's going to wrap around even more. So be careful how you do this. If you want to scale it up and down, just be careful not to distort your image too much. Make sure it's still kind of true to life. And that way, once you get down into your scene, it looks like you got like kind of a more natural background here. Almost like a sky dome light. I can move this around so I get the best view from my tabletop. So, and now I've got objects and things that will show up in the background. Now with this, I can also go to the materials again, my backdrop, and I can apply different, actually, what I have to do, if I try to render this, nothing's going to show, right? I have to make sure that I apply my sky dome light or go to Arnold Lights and create a sky dome light. I'm going to turn my sky dome light back on. And so now I've got settings here that I can adjust, but I'm not going to really see those settings unless I have it rendered. So I want to see what the rendered view looks like first, and I can kind of tell how I need to adjust my light. So if I need more intensity here, if I want to make this brighter, I can bring this out more. If I want to bring up the exposure, I can bring up some exposure as well and make this brighter. So there's different ways that you can adjust this to make it fit the style of your scene that you're going for. So you can decide how you want it to look and customize your scene to fit whatever it is that you need it to look like, and adjust. You can play around with the visibility, you can play around with the exposure, you can play around with the intensity to see how bright and how you can make this look really nice. So play around with these. You can also, to some extent, play around with the actual object itself, the polyplane, and you can play around with editing, or you can create your own images if you wanted to in Photoshop and edit them in Photoshop and then bring them into Maya to work as your background. So you can get pretty creative with this and customize your scene as you want it to be. So, and it will take on the objects applied right. The object in your scene will take on the same kind of lighting properties as what you see in the in your image. So now you have it. Now you have a way that you can create kind of an image plane for a backdrop.